Welcome to the DMF. I am your host, Justin Yachts, and today is part 3 of my interview with Nachela Knox. She is a writer, a producer, an actress, and a director. Enjoy. So, yeah, talk a little bit about getting distribution for Couch Party.
So that was a very interesting process. So I had a producer and, she was actively going out to, get different deals. Granted, I knew that it was going to take time. I didn't think it was going to be something that was done overnight. It was my first time going through distribution, so I didn't really quite know what to expect. But I did start becoming very frustrated because
Mm,
I'm a very competitive person and I know a lot of filmmakers.
yeah.
So, when you're on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, and you see like 30 of your friends releasing their movies and, you
Yeah.
know, that were shot either at the same time as yours or maybe a little bit before or maybe even after, and you're seeing these deals get done, it's like, wait a minute, something's not right here. Like,
Mm,
what are they doing that I'm not, or what part am I missing? So, had a lot of conversations with my producer, and there was this whole thing of, oh, like the industry shut down because of the holidays. Granted, it does.
mm,
Like
yeah.
November, December till like middle of January, things kind of get shut down. Understandable. But then time kept going on and I was getting very frustrated. I took out a loan to do Couch Party and I knew that loan at the time was probably going to break me, but I didn't care because I was
Yeah.
like, this is what I got to do this film and that's just what I got to do. So I was working, two jobs, really three, all at the same time. And I'm not hearing anything about what's going on. Like we would get, oh, well, it's been sent here. I can see we had like a screener link. So I could see
Mm,
the work clicking on it and I could
yeah.
see where like we were everywhere, like Florida, New York, California, like people everywhere. But I'm like, why is nobody, making an offer? So I got so frustrated because I was like, I'm the type of person where if you're not doing your job, I'm gonna do your job for you because
Yeah.
I don't have time to waste.
Yeah.
So I was like, you know what? I've tried to, give you the time that you need to go and do and get this deal, but now I need to go get a deal myself
Yeah.
because something's not right. So I
So
got
you
one
delegated this to somebody. So you delegated this to someone and they weren't.
exactly. So I went out and got one. I got an offer. It was nice. But then, that's when Homestead came into the conversation. At the time, I was really interested in them because Homestead is probably the biggest. I'm not sure if that is 100% true, but if not, they are one of the biggest like black owned distribution companies. So that was very appealing to me at the time because I'm like, okay, that would be really cool. They also represent or they have distributed some of the films that are very popular on Tubi. Like Dennis Reed is like the director writer. A lot of his films have been, some of the most popular films on Tubi. So at the time, I was like, of course, like I would love to be, affiliated with a company like that because I didn't know what I know now about distribution. Because if we're being honest, the way distribution works, none of that really mattered. Everything I just said does not matter, but I didn't know that at the time.
Yeah.
So, they came to the conversation and it became the same thing. Like, oh, like we're not hearing anything. So I just decided to reach out to them and they got back to me and like literally within 24 hours, I had a contract.
What do you think was going on? What do you think they were not doing? Just not doing anything at all, or
I think what happens is when you deal with people and they put you on a certain level in their head that
Mhm.
then their actions reflect everything after that. Because I wholeheartedly believe that if I had a film that had, let's just say one name,
Yeah.
one, I had a film that had one name in it. Now, and to be fair, if I did, then yes, I probably would have been offered, better deals. It might have been faster. But the other side of that is, okay, if we're looking at the facts are it's an independent film. Does it have named actors in it? No. Does it have like this huge, like, is it Hollywood, like industry level? No. But on an independent scale, I do
Yeah.
think fall nicely on the independent scale. So knowing that, all of the distributors who, take those type of movies, like we know who they are. But if you're
Yeah.
dealing with who's like, well, I'm still going to try to chase Netflix. That doesn't make sense.
Okay. Okay. So I see what you're saying. The guy that whoever this person is was basically trying to go after just everything, kind of wasting your time instead of going after, what you thought.
Right. Like I totally understand wanting to get the best deal possible. And that is something that I did want. I wanted to get the best deal possible, but I'm also realistic. Like I'm realistic. I know, the technical aspects of my movie that could have been better. I know
Yeah.
that. Nobody has to point that out to me because I literally can tell you what they are. So
Yeah.
if that came up in conversation, I would never try to be like, oh no, that doesn't make sense. But it's like you have somebody telling you one thing, and then it's like for them to kind of go around and be like, oh, well, I have XYZ going on. That means that you put me here on your list of priorities when you have
Yeah.
all of these other things. But if I had a project that had, more stuff in it, then maybe I would have been higher on the list. And while I'm not high on your list, I'm high on my own list. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Yeah.
important to me. And
This is the person we're talking about that's kind of like trying to broker these deals, correct?
exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
So
I get what you're saying. So kind of like an agent.
get it that way. Got into all of that, it was like, hey, I'll come on as a producer and I can help you get your distribution because
Yeah.
I had no idea how to do that. So of course I'm like, yes, please come and help
But
me.
he's selling his services to 500 other people too.
Yeah, like that. Or if you have all these other things going on and here's this little
Yeah.
project that you don't think is gonna like you don't like it's not as important to you because the level
Sure.
is not on the same level that you claim that other things are, if that makes
It's quantity over quality in some ways.
right. Because I
Yeah.
think that's the thing too. Like I'm a very honest person, but you know, dealing with people in the industry, they're not like
Yes.
they're
It's
not.
no, they're not.
Had somebody approached me and said, "Hey, yeah, but I'm gonna say yes, I can do this for you, but I'm actually gonna, run around for months and months and months, and
Yeah,
then
they don't do that. They say,
uh,
"Oh, yeah, I'll do it."
right,
Wait,
exactly.
wait, wait. So I assume he was trying to get you did you want them to help pay for the film as well, which you ended up taking out a loan for?
So, no, not exactly. So when I
Okay.
originally approached them, I was looking for executive producers, but they had already let me know that was something that they weren't going to be able to do. So once they said no,
Mhm.
that was fine. But then they offered to come on as a producer to help with the distribution, which I'm like, yeah, that would be great.
Yeah.
And we set up our agreement that way. But no, I funded the film myself
Okay.
plus what I got in donations.
Knowing what you know now, what would you have done differently?
Whew, there's so many things. Number one, number one, one thing I learned is that if I go to you and I say, "Hey, I need apples," and you tell me that you have pears, then our conversation stops there. There's nothing else we need to talk about because that's not what I asked you for. And at the time, it was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, you have a pear? Well, I don't have pears, so I guess I'll take a pear." But I didn't need that pear at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So now I have to pay for that. But it's like,
Yeah.
no, one, if I approach you and you don't have what I'm looking for, you can't do what I'm asking, then there's nothing else to talk about. Nothing else to talk about. Number two, for me going forward, for anybody that wants to be on my project or, gain any type of compensation off of my project and my work,
Yeah.
either number one, you're gonna have to put in for it, or you're
Yeah.
gonna have to provide like a legitimate resource. So if you're telling me you can get Will Smith, then I need to see the contract and I need to be on the call with Will Smith. I
Wait,
can't do
wait. I gotta wait. I gotta stop you right there. So I assume that this is probably somebody that did actually say this to you and said, "I know so and so," whatever. It's like, yeah, red flag right there.
exactly like, or it's like people do this thing where if they see, that's the thing I had to learn. Like everybody you talk to is like, I don't want to say trying to manipulate you, but like
Yeah.
they kind of are if they feel like they know more than you,
Oh,
because they'll say things that the average person won't think anything about.
yeah.
When you know what you know, it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. So you would have people come to, or try to be a part of the project, and they'd be like, oh, yeah, like just give me, 10%, and I have all
Yeah.
of these connections, and I can do this,
Yeah.
and I can do that. And it's like, no, you can't. Because if you can,
Yeah.
like, I need you to call this person that you're talking about right now because
Yeah.
I'm not signing anything without having concrete proof that you can provide what
Yeah.
you,
Oh,
you know?
I met somebody that was like, "Oh, I know so and so here," but then he starts asking me about, "Well, do you know somebody in New York?" And I'm like, "Wait a minute, if you know this person here, why do you need that?"
Exactly. Like,
If you have your stuff together and you have this star, and you're asking me to get that, I'm like, what are you talking about here? You
oh,
know, and you'll get that. They'll be like, "Oh, I know so and so here," and then a little more into the conversation, like, "Oh, but can you do this?" It's like, ah, the
exactly.
real circle here.
Like, always like reading the vibe. Like, if I think that your vibe is off, then no, like I
Yeah,
can't do. I think that's something I used to ignore because I feel like I'm a classic overthinker, like a lot of
yeah,
creative.
yeah,
So anytime I would have that feeling, I would be like, "Oh, you're overthinking. You're overthinking. It's
yeah.
fine. They didn't do anything. It's fine." And no, it wasn't.
No, no, not in this business. I mean, you can give them like a week or so, but if like nothing's going on, you know, it's like, what's going on here?
See the red flags, or once you learn the red flags, it's so easy to recognize them because
Yeah,
now nobody could ever run that game on me. Nobody
yeah,
could. I promise you they couldn't. I'm like, I'm glad I learned that now because that's the first and the last time that will ever happen to me. I promise you'll
yeah.
never. So now,
So all right, so that's 2. What was the 3rd one? I interrupted you on the 3rd one.
the third one, I think I was gonna say, oh yeah, like don't don't let people belittle you,
Yeah,
you know, because I think that's another common thing too that people do in this industry. They try to belittle you if they feel
yeah,
like you're not on their level. But here's the truth in that. You can't belittle me because you're talking to me, you know?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I didn't come to your doorstep knocking and begging and pleading and being like, please, please come on this project. No, that's not what happened.
yeah,
You're talking to me. You agreed to be on this because like you thought
yeah,
that you could get something from it. But now you're trying to turn it around and make it seem like it's like my job to
yeah,
listen and do everything because you know so much more. But it's like that's not true. That's the mind game. That's the
yeah,
thing. So, yeah, like, you can't let people talk down to you at all, like, no, red flag, huge red
yeah,
flag,
yeah.
because it makes you feel small, and then it makes everything that they're doing okay.
Especially if they or another red flag is when they start off immediately with somebody famous. It's
Um,
saying so though. It's like, really? You're gonna lead with that? You don't know
yeah.
what the project's about, but you already know so and so. You know, it's like right there.
Promise you anything is honestly a red flag because
Yeah,
unless you're literally, you know, best friends with the head of that department and you can call
yeah,
him up on speed dial, then you can't guarantee anybody anything. And you definitely
yeah,
can't guarantee a distribution deal before the film is even done. How? What if it doesn't happen? What if the film doesn't
yeah,
get, or what if it gets done and like it just got done
yeah,
poorly? Then
yeah.
what?
And you also gotta look at when you sign a distribution deal, it's like, what are they gonna, what are they doing? You know, like you gotta read that fine print. They could just put in there, but like, well, if so and so sits on days, we can just get rid of it completely. We don't have to do anything about it, and we're legally in the right.
I mean,
And we also get to keep the rights of your movie, and not, you don't ever get to see.
yes, definitely if you're going through distribution, you need a entertainment lawyer for sure. And if you
Yeah,
can't afford one or you just don't have one, whatever it is, then you need to make sure you can Google everything because that's another thing that like nothing is, it sounds funny, but like
Yeah.
nothing literal is literal.
Oh no.
If
I
that
mean,
makes
yeah, they'll put here and there. It's I signed a lease in New York, and it's like, I'm looking at it and like, okay, well, what about this thing here? I'm having my father look at it, who does that stuff, and I'm just like, "Well, okay, what about that?" It's just like, because they put that stuff in there, and it's all so that they can, save face. Like, "Oh, it didn't work out, but we tried really hard, but, we will keep the film and we will do nothing with it."
it's that, but like when you're dealing with filmmakers who it's their first
Yeah,
time going
yeah,
through distribution, or maybe they just don't know. See, what happens is you have some people who get so excited that they're even in this process that they'll sign anything. And
yeah.
then or they didn't understand that nothing literal is literal. So
That's the worst thing you can do, and they prey on that desperation. They sense as like, oh, okay, well,
I
we'll
think
take
especially in the
we'll
independent
take all of this here. It's like that movie, that Elvis movie with, what's his name there, the Colonel's, like, taking 50% and like, "What?"
you have too those independent filmmakers. I think money for an independent filmmaker is always gonna be a struggle unless you have
Yeah,
those connections or a really rich uncle, that's always gonna be a struggle. So you have those distributors who are like, "Hey, you
yeah,
need how much for your film? We'll give it to you. You can go make it. We'll put it out." But it's like
yeah,
understanding how the platform works. Because if I give you, let's say, $20,000, you're excited. I got $20,000. I can go make my next film. That's great. But
yeah,
what they didn't tell you is how long is it going to take for that film to make that $20,000 back?
exactly, exactly.
You know what I
And
mean?
that's the thing, you gotta be you can't also compromise with what you're doing. I mean, think of, was it Stallone when he was doing selling Rocky?
Mhm.
They all wanted him, he's like, "I want to star in this," and he kept and directed. But he stood firm, and you see how it works. I mean, if you just give it over to them, it's unfortunate. I mean, look at that movie Suicide Squad with David Ayer. His
Mhm.
film was completely cut in a way that, like, that's not his movie anymore. It's almost like you could tell when he talks about it. Like, he said it was like watching your baby get effed and you can't do anything about it. Is
No,
they could just ruin your film. So it's like, yeah, you got to always be careful of that, and you also gotta stand up for it. I mean, that's one of the things I like about Tarantino. They wanted him to take out the ear scene in Reservoir Dogs, and they said, "Look, if we take that out, we can make it PG-13, we can do this, we can do that." And he stood there and it's like this giant silence, and he said, "No, I don't wanna do that." And then there was more silence,
right.
and they waited, and they said, "Okay, well, we'll do that." But it shows that if you stand for, and I say this to people and they're like, "Oh, okay, it's easy to do that." I'm like, he was an unknown, and he did that. But it just shows, you gotta protect the integrity of it, because here's the thing, they're not the ones that's gonna suffer the loss when the movie comes out and it's not good. It's gonna be you who's gonna, say, "So and so directed this, and it was a flop because we
Yeah.
ruined it." And they'll put
Exactly.
all of it on you. And
You
then
just
the lead actor will get, like, some of the crap, but it's like usually the director has to take the whole burden of the
That's the
failure.
hardest part of being a director is
Yeah,
because, there's gonna be some things that it's like you had control over it, but you really didn't. But you're
yeah,
always gonna be the one they blame. Always. Like a lot of people really don't know, like the average person that's not,
yeah,
in film doesn't know what a director truly does. Like there are some people that think that the director is like the person who shoots the film. Like
yeah,
I
yeah, they don't know the difference between cinematographer and a director. Yeah, it's
they literally don't know, or like I've seen people like there's those groups, they have like Tubi groups and
yeah.
like everybody posts the movies in there or they talk about them. And I just read some of the comments and I'm like, y'all literally have no idea how to like none at all, but have
Yeah,
like the most opinions.
yeah.
Like,
I have all these opinions, and it's just like that. My favorite is like, "Oh, it's bad acting, it's bad." It's like, "Do you even know what that is?"
yeah, like
They'll say
that.
bad writing or whatever. It's like, "Do you?" Do you know the difference between writing and directing?
No, they don't. Most people really
Oh,
don't. I'm like, because I read those
yeah,
comments, I'm just like, this doesn't even make
yeah,
what you're saying.
yeah. The best thing to do though is, call those people out and be like, "Hey, I'll discuss it with you." No one will say anything again
Not
because once you call them out on it, they'll be like, "Well, I don't really wanna say anything." It's like, "Okay, you can hide behind the keyboard, but, you're not gonna say what you really It's so funny.
in those groups, like they like drama. Like that's the whole group,
Oh,
honestly.
yeah.
The more dramatic it is, the more people are gonna do that. So if you were to like go in there and be like, well, actually, blah 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 blah, they would like get mad, like they would get
Yeah,
offended. They would try to come at you, like
yeah.
correcting me or why are you even in this group? Why not like it would be this whole thing. That's
It's
why I
it's the law of attraction for complainers
yes, exactly. That's really all it is.
who are just gonna complain, like, they're never gonna like it. I mean, there's some people that just are never gonna be happy with something,
No.
and then there's some people that have constructive criticism, and it's good to know the difference between the 2. If you just, like, say, "Well, I just thought all of it was bad." It's like, "Okay, what did you think was bad about it?" "Yeah, just all of it." It's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do with that?" It's like, what can you what can you do with a bad.
That's why, like, for couch party, something that I'm still actively trying to do is
Yeah.
I don't know how to define my true audience. Like, I feel like my true audience is, like,
Mhm.
people who enjoy, like, classic comedies. And
Yeah.
it's like trying to pinpoint that audience is a
Yeah.
struggle. Because if I'm being honest, the audience that's in those Tubi groups, like while they may like Couch Party, it's just
Yeah.
to fit the bill to really go viral in those groups because it's
Yeah.
just their type of movie. And that's not because they don't think it's like funny, but it's
Mhm.
almost like it's not like explicit enough. Like a lot of those films on Tubi, like they
Yeah.
may be very violent or like very sexual or like just these extremely left things. And my film is
Yeah.
not. So it
Yeah.
doesn't really get talked about as much. Or I can post it and it's like, oh, okay. Like you'll have some people will comment, they're like, oh yeah, I saw this, it was funny, but it's not fitting that audience. So I really want to reach
Yeah.
classic comedy movie audience because I
Yeah.
feel like they would appreciate it if that makes sense.
Does Tubi, I mean, I'm sure Tubi has, like, an algorithm, are they able to share it with, like, because I see that they're, like, in, like, little blocks of the films, when you scroll through it, and I have to assume that that's probably wherever your film is in, that's kinda where it's just recycling between the people that are watching those films, and it's not
Yeah,
going.
it's kinda complicated. We
Yeah.
like when the film released in July. So in
Yeah.
July, we were on the front page for, first time on Tubi. We were in that little box. We were in the Black Cinema box, which we still are,
Yeah.
but to be like most popular or whatever else, it's very complicated how that works. It's like
Mm.
it is an algorithm, but you gotta think very big numbers. Like you gotta be like millions, billions
Yeah.
range to be up there and to stay up there, which is the challenge. I
I
feel
think it's
like
work.
you gotta like one of the things I learned, I didn't think about marketing, when
Mm.
I started this because I couldn't think that far ahead. I didn't think
Yeah.
about, hey, you might want to have X amount of dollars so you can go do these things.
Yeah.
Now that's a must. It's gonna be added in the budget because now number one, I know how much things cost. And number two,
Yeah.
I see the difference it makes. I'm very proud of the work that me and my
Yeah.
team have done because if we're just being transparent, like what marketing budget? Like
Yeah.
like everything
Yeah.
is come from me at this point. So, if even though I can't afford to go get a big old billboard or whatever else, it's like what we have done obviously is working somewhat because I see the numbers
Yeah.
go up. They're not going down. They're not, you know, staying at some point. They're continuing to go up. So imagine
That's
what I
good.
if I had, a large marketing budget so I could really push it the way I would like, which I mean, we'll work
Yeah.
on.
Okay, that about does it for part 3 of my interview with Nachela Knox. I want to thank her personally for coming on. I hope you enjoyed it, and stay tuned for part 4. As always, you can find me at Justin Yachts. Please like, share, and subscribe, and consider checking out the YouTube channel. And I will see you next time on the DMF.